So I have one question for you, Heat fans. Did you miss us? You know what? Never mind. And don't answer this in your comments because you probably will anyway. But we are back. Training camp is days away. Media day is Monday. Training camp is days away. And we actually have some news to talk about. So my name is John Devine. I am here with Anthony Chang, and we're going to talk all things Heat for a little bit, if that's okay with you guys. Good to see you again, Anthony. Hope you got a little bit of rest because it's not going to be dull.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've recorded an episode. I'm glad to be back. Definitely some news to talk about. And it's kind of crazy. It feels strange that Media Day is only 4 or 5 days away. It really kind of snuck up on us here.
Well, for Media Day, we have one person who's going to be out for a little bit, and we have one person who's returning. Let's start with who's out, and that is Tyler Herro. He played for the first time. He played more than 70 games in a season. He was challenged by Pat Riley last year. Get healthy, be available. Your number one ability is availability, and he's going to be out. For how long? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's going to be around 8 weeks, which he had the surgery on last Friday. So when you're listening to this episode, probably 7 weeks from that point. But basically, that's the first month of the season, regular season. So I would say at least you're looking at earliest mid-November a Tyler Herro return, maybe late November, depending on how it goes. Could be December, I guess. But it's not season ending, which is the good thing. But definitely going to miss a chunk of the season, probably around 15 games or so. So, unfortunately, not the way you want to start the season for the Heat. Obviously, they have a tough early season schedule. I think 6 of the first 8 are on the road. They have a West Coast trip in the second week of the season. So it's gonna be a challenging stretch. You're missing your leading scorer from last year, your best offensive player, unfortunately. But this really got Norman Powell for, right? You have depth now as far as scorers. Norm is really going to be relied on immediately to kind of carry a heavy burden offensively with Tyler out.
But if you have Norman Powell there, which is great, it's an upgrade from last year. Aren't you pretty much in that case? Then you're pretty much in the same spot until Tyler Herro gets back.
Yeah, I mean it could be even worse, right? I mean, depending on what you think of Tyler Herro, Tyler Herro is probably a little bit better offensive player than Norman Powell at this point. But yeah, it's similar to where you were, which was one of the worst offenses in the league. So unless somebody else takes a huge step forward, like Nikola Jovic, or another player, Jaime Hawkins plays better, or because you didn't just obviously it's not that you don't only have Tyler Herro, you also lost Duncan Robinson, right, off this team, which arguably one of your top 5 offensive players as well, just because of his 3-point shooting and the spacing he provides. So definitely going to be a struggle on offense to start without Tyler. I don't think that's crazy to say, right? This team has had one of the bottom 10 offenses the last 3 years, even with Jimmy on the team for most of that time. Now you take off Jimmy, take off Tyler for the first season, take out Duncan Robinson, you put in Norman Powell, which should help, but it's hard. It's hard to fill all those empty slots. So yeah, it's going to be tough offensively, I think, to start, especially with the competition they're facing. They face a lot of good teams. Just unfortunate. I know Tyler, he's been dealing with this since July, right? And it's something he has tried to endure. He took some injections in the foot to try to avoid surgery. The hope was that it would alleviate the pain and discomfort. Never did. That's why he had to go through, get the surgery so late in the offseason. They were hoping it wouldn't get to that, but it did, and they wanted to take care of it now. It's just unfortunate he's going to miss time in the regular season.
So when did this injury first crop up? Was it there at the end of the season and he could have taken care of it at the beginning and they just waited and saw it got worse? Or is this something that cropped out in workouts?
Yeah, I think it's something that he's dealt with on and off since last season, but I don't think it was ever seen as a big issue. But I think during a workout, I think it was in July, he felt it. And that's when I think there was a little bit of a red flag that popped up and was like, okay, what is this, right? And again, they tried to see if they could avoid surgery, if it would just get better with injections and with time and rest. It didn't. So looking back, hindsight is 2020, right? Should he have gotten the surgery in July and maybe he's out until September and he's back for training camp? Yeah, I guess if he knew he was going to have to get it anyway, probably that would have been the best route to take. But They did not take that route. Obviously, you try to avoid surgery at all costs if you can, right? Surgery is never the first option, but it was the only option because if not, it was going to be something that was going to be lingering moving forward. So again, decided to take care of it now. It's not something that's going to, have him miss 8 months, 10 months, but it is going to have him, miss at least the first month of the season. And the Heat's margin of error is slim, right? That could cost them avoiding the play in this time. It could mean, like looking back at the end of the season, it could be, those first 15 games going 5-10. That's why we're in the play-in again. So the margin of error is very small. So yes, it's only 15 games, but it is going to hurt the Heat.
So we're not playing the result, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. What would have been the downside for them to have that surgery in July?
I think you just always try to avoid surgery. You never know how you're going to come back from surgery, right? If you can avoid the surgery, that's what you want to do. You just don't know how your body's going to react to a surgery. You don't know how, if maybe there's going to be effects down the road because of the surgery. So I think if you can avoid the surgery, if you have any chance of avoiding the surgery, you probably do that, right? And they must have thought, we're probably not going to need it. We think this will work. We think rest will help it. Again, it did not work, and they had to get the surgery. But it's a good question because I thought the same thing. But big picture, I'm trying to think of why they would delay it. Probably because if there's any chance you can avoid a surgery, you try to. I think that's what they did.
All right, fair enough. You know these guys better than I do, so I'm just asking from the outside looking in. So we know Herro's out 7 weeks probably by the time this comes up.
Yeah.
And does that include getting in game shape and getting back on the floor, or 7 weeks before he starts practicing?
Well, the way the release was written, it says that he's expected to miss 8 weeks. So usually if he needs to be reevaluated or something, it would say will be reevaluated in 7 weeks. So the fact that he said he'll miss 7 weeks, I'm assuming that includes the ramp up period. But we'll see, right? I mean, that it says around 8 weeks, could be 9 weeks, could be 7 weeks, could be 10 weeks, depending on how the body recovers from injury. Also, like, where will he be in that time? Will he be in the middle of a West Coast trip? At that point, will he say, well, let's finish the trip. He'll come back when we get back home. So a lot of things could kind of dictate when he returns, right? But I think mid to late November is a fair estimation.
All right, so we talked about off the court. Let's talk about on the court. We know Norman Powell can be a nice little substitute in that role. But let's talk about the backcourt as a whole, because there is a little bit of change. And you wrote a story on it on Tuesday. Talk to me about how you foresee the backcourt picking up the slack while he's gone. Or why don't you try this? Tell me the best case scenario on how you think the backcourt will work out.
Yeah, I mean, they have a bunch of guards, right? After getting Drew Smith, I think they have 7 guards in the roster. So there was a question of who's going to start in the backcourt, right? When they got Norman Powell. Is it going to be Tyler and Norm and no point guard and David Mitchell plays off the bench? Is it going to be Davion and Tyler and Norman Powell plays off the bench? I think this makes it cleaner, at least to start the season, right? We're pretty sure it's going to be Davion and Norm now with Tyler unavailable. So that's a positive. There's no kind of mystery of who's going to start in the backcourt. At least, early on, it's going to be those two. So the hope is Norm kind of fits in right away, takes on that, number 1A, 1B scoring role with Bam while Tyler's out, flourishes, is efficient like he's been the last, few years in the last few seasons, one of the, more efficient scorers in the league. When you look at just shooting percentages and shot attempts and what he's able to do on those opportunities. So I think that's the best case scenario. And then Davion kind of picks up where he left off last year, which was one of the best offensive stretches of his career. Shooting the 3 ball well, getting to the rim, putting pressure on the rim, facilitating. So I think that those two playing off of each other and complementing each other, that would be best case scenario. But then if that works out well, let's say, what happens when Tyler returns, right? That's always going to be the question. It's like, it's kind of a catch-22 of you want it to work, you want it to look good, then Tyler comes back and what? Do you put Davion on the bench? You put Norm on the bench? I don't think Tyler's playing off the bench at this point. So going to be interesting to see how it plays out because, I think the vision is there of what it could look like with Tyler out. But when Tyler comes back, based on how it goes with those two, how will Eric Spoelstra kind of play it? That's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, that's a question for another day in November, but it is something we'll monitor. Then you also have guys, I'm looking through a list right now. Pelle Larsson, who is probably going to play anyway, but maybe he plays more minutes off the bench in his second season. Kind of, really good role player for them. Guy who could play physical defense, kind of fill in the gaps in the backcourt. You have Terry Rozier, who this is Terry Rozier's shot. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to play big minutes, but if there was ever a time for that this team needs Terry Rozier, a guy who could score points, you're missing your leading scorer from last year. This is what they got Terry Rozier for to be a guy who could.
Is it safe to look now?
Soak up the usage, and so I don't know. I don't think he might not play right away, but there might be certain games where they call on him to help inject some life into the offense with Tyler out. So if Terry Rozier wants to prove that he could still contribute to this team, it's good. It's probably going to have to come in the first month of the season when Tyler's out. It's going to be a good opportunity for him to kind of prove that maybe last year was a fluke.
Oof. What about your first
I know that's not what you
pick?
want to hear, but yeah, first round pick. I mean, he's probably the last one. I mean, I would get to Drew Smith first, I think, before I even get to Kaspers at this point. It just doesn't seem ready. Unless there was this huge leap after Summer League in the last month or two. I mean, he's 19 years old. It's hard to expect him to just play. I mean, I know he's a first-round pick, but it's hard to expect him to just play immediately while Tyler's out. They have other more experienced, I think, better option at this point to turn to over Kaspers. I think it'd be kind of unfair to him. But yeah, he's there. He's depth if you need him. But I would look at guys obviously like Norm, Davion, obviously Pelle Larsson, Terry Rozier, Drew Smith, who I know is coming off an Achilles injury, but again, proved to be very reliable last year as a point guard. I think you look at those guys first before you even get to your first round pick, just because he's so inexperienced and so young.
So you are telling me that if Spoelstra looks down the bench, sees guys available, and he sees Jakachonis and he sees Rozier, he's going to say, "Scary Terry, stand on up and get in the game."
He's the fourth highest paid player.
I didn't ask what he was getting paid. I asked you who's going to play.
I mean, Spo. Spo. I mean, I think you can make an argument to play the rookie. Why not, right? Get him some reps. But he's going to play the guy he knows. He's going to play the more experienced guy.
But if you know the guy isn't playing well, why? Okay, never mind.
They played him. How many times did they play him last year before they pulled him out of the rotation? They stuck with him for a while. So I would not. I would just say this. I would not be shocked if Terry Rozier gets an opportunity to earn some playing time early on. If he plays poorly, maybe that goes away really quickly.
Okay.
But I could definitely see that. I mean, again, I spoke to somebody around the Heat, and they were like, "Yeah, this is his chance." I don't think.
Is that person's name Rozier too?
I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he's not going to start, but there'll be spots. There'll be spots where we'll see what he can do, and he'll get an opportunity to play.
There are 26 million reasons for him to play. I understand.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of reasons not to. Let me ask you a question. What's the size on Norm Powell?
His height?
Yeah.
I think he's like 6'4", 6'5", kind of.
Okay. So it's a little small. I
mean, 6'4". 6'4".
Here's why I ask. During this offseason and this time, they keep talking about Wiggins and how other teams would be interested. Right. And if and when this whole thing comes back and their team's relatively healthy, is there a way to play Davion, Powell, and Tyler Herro together if you ended up moving Wiggins out?
I'm sure there'll be lineups where you could use that in certain matchups. I just don't know if that's sustainable or able to hold up over a long stretch, just defensively, right? I mean, we know Tyler's limitations defensively. Norm has the body to be a good defender, long wingspan, like strong guy. Hasn't been great on defense lately, the last few years with the Clippers. And then obviously we know Davion is good, but I think it might be tough to hold up defensively in today's NBA with those three. But again, I would not be sure. I would expect them to play together at some point for certain stretches of the game, maybe closing time if the matchup's right. But I think this team wants to see what Wiggins can do with this group.
Okay.
I do. I think they want to see what Wiggins can do with, after a whole offseason in the program and getting more comfortable, moving his family down here. I think they want to see how he can complement this roster.
If Norm was 6'7", I think that may have been a little bit different.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
6'4".
For sure. Yeah, 6'4" is tough. Yeah, it's tough.
So that means we're talking size. We talked about the backcourt. Now to the front court. For the whole offseason, we said they have two centers. They have Bam and they have Kel'el Ware. Well, as of Wednesday, they now have a third center. And it's the 2021 round of the draft pick, Precious Achiuwa. Talk to me about what he brings to the table, one. And two, I guess, how that works in terms of salary cap and roster construction.
Yeah. Are we calling Precious the center? I did in my story, but I was like, should I do it as he's 6'8"? So, but I do think they would play him as center. I agree with you.
Exposed positionless basketball. We just
Yeah.
talked about Norm Powell maybe playing, as a swingman guarding forwards or guards. There are going to be times where Precious probably plays.
Yeah, and even as a rookie, they played him as a center.
Yeah, not against Cleveland, but
right,
not against double bigs. But
yeah, I think he look, I don't want to make too much of this addition. Obviously, he's the Heat's first round pick from 2020. There was a lot of talk about him and buzz about being maybe like similar to Bam Adebayo. Obviously, that's not played out that way in the first few years of his career. But it's good depth, right, for this roster. They needed big man depth. They only had Kel'el and Bam as centers on the roster. They had Vlad Golden as a two-way, but he's an undrafted rookie. Who knows what he'll be able to do at this level, right? He's good depth too, but you wanted someone else a little more proven. Precious was available. A guy they know. He knows the system. Can kind of play the way Spo likes, where he could switch onto different positions. More of a obviously he's an undersized center who has athleticism, can play on the perimeter a little bit. So it kind of fits. And again, he's a depth piece. Is he going to play every night? I don't think that's the plan, but he's a good body to have, right? If Bam is hurt, Kel'el is hurt, if someone else in the power rotation is hurt. So it makes sense. And the fact that he's getting him on a 1-year non-guaranteed deal where, I mean, they could cut him 2 weeks into camp and, there'd be no dead money. So that's another positive. So yeah, I think it makes sense for both sides, right? Precious is looking for another opportunity. It's a place he knows, a team that knows him well. So I think it makes sense. And then from the salary cap standpoint, this team was $1.6 million under the tax before the signing. This is non-guaranteed. So technically they're not in the tax yet. But if his full salary is guaranteed, which his cap hit is like $2.3 million, will become guaranteed on January 10th. So basically if he's on the roster past January 10th, they would go over the tax by $700,000. We've already talked about ad nauseum. They do not want to be a tax team this year. They've been the tax last 2 years. They're trying to avoid the repeater tax. So I would expect either some type of move, whether it's cutting Precious before January 10th, so that way his full salary does not become guaranteed, making a trade to shed salary to make room for Precious on the roster, trading Terry Rozier, waiving Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier's full salary isn't guaranteed either. He has $2 million, around $2 million, not guaranteed, that become guaranteed in January 10th. So they could technically waive Terry in December and make room for Precious to stay on the team. But that would mean you're paying Terry $24 million, the other $24 million to not be on the roster. That's the downside.
That's what
to
you
go
want to
away,
say.
Right?
Okay.
So you probably prefer to trade Terry at this point. I don't know if they'll be able to, but there are options. They have time, right, to figure this out. The main positive is that it's non-guaranteed, so it gives them another option of saying, well, we could just cut Precious. If it isn't working out, we don't need Precious or whatever. They could cut him and remain under the tax. So I think it's a win-win for both. This has been kind of rumored here for the last few weeks. Not surprised it happened. Camp is a few days away. I'm sure you wanted to join a team before camp. So, not surprised. And now the Heat's roster is full at 15 players on standard contracts. They'll actually have to waive one of the developmental guys, one of the Exhibit 10 guys, to make room for Precious on the preseason roster because they're at 21 players, which is the max of the preseason. They'll have to waive one of the younger guys to make room for Precious. But that'll come either maybe later today or tomorrow. Definitely come in the next few days.
Looking at the roster, and all joking aside, yes, I'm hard on Terry Rozier. I get it. But the Heat, what does the Heat need more? Does the Heat need another guard or does the Heat need another power player? I think that answer is pretty easy to figure out. all
Another
things
power
being
player.
equal.
Yeah, another
Right.
power player. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. They didn't need another guard at this point, right? They have, I mean, when they signed Drew Smith, we were like, another guard, right? So yeah, I think it made sense. They needed another big body. Again, at this point of the offseason, the options are limited. Precious is probably as good as you're gonna get. Look, Thomas Bryant just signed a non-guaranteed deal yesterday with Cleveland. Kind of the same similar deal that Precious signed now. And I would say Precious is definitely comparable to a guy like Thomas Bryant. Different games, but they're gonna be able to eat innings during the regular season. If you need a body, big body, you could play them for 5-10 minute bursts off the bench, and they'll be fine. They'll be able to hold up. So again, I think it helps. I mean, is it going to change the look of the Heat season? Obviously not. But in the regular season, bodies matter, depth matters, and he gives you that.
You left one. We keep leaving one big person out. The star of Eurobasket,
Nikola
Jovic. Well,
yeah.
You say Jovic or Jokic? Because we can always hope. But yes,
Heat
Jovic.
star, yeah.
But yes, let's talk about him because he did have a fairly successful European tournament. And we keep forgetting how young this guy truly is and what he brings to the construction of the team if it could translate to games on a consistent basis. I think he gives something that other people on that team don't give. And as much as our wings, okay, when you talk wings, you have Wiggins, but we have a lot of guards, and there are a lot of smaller guards, 6'4" and under. And then you have a couple of bigs. But that's 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" wing guy. You don't have a ton of those. So he's going to be key, whether you like it or not. And then there's one other thing. There's also his contract situation that will come up. Right. And if he has a big year, then all of a sudden that's going to cost you some money.
Yeah, I mean, Nikola Jovic is one of the more interesting guys entering media day and training camp just because he had a really good offseason. He was impressive. Like you said, he's kind of the X factor for this team. He's taller. He's 2 inches taller than Precious. We're talking about Precious as a center. And I agree, Precious is more of a center than Nikola Jovic, but Jovic is 6'10". He's 22 years old. Seems to be improving, right? If he can stay healthy, I think the question is, does he start next to Bam instead of Kel'el Ware at this point? Maybe. I would not be surprised, right? I think that's going to be a decision Spo's going to have to make in the next few weeks before the start of the season. If he wants to go that route instead of where, the way the team ended last season with Kel'el and Bam as starting front court. I think that's one of the more interesting storylines of the preseason. And then his extension, like you mentioned, he's extension eligible. He's been extension eligible since July 1st until I think October 20th, the day before they start the regular season. So they have pretty much a little bit less than a month to decide on if they want to give Jovic an extension. If they don't give him an extension, he'll be a restricted free agent next offseason. Does the Heat want to take a risk of putting him, again, they'll have some control because he's a restricted free agent, but do they want to go that far? And maybe he has a breakout season. The price goes up for Jovic, gets harder to sign him. So maybe they try to get. I would not rule out an extension before the start of the season. I would not rule it out just because, again, he's young. You might be able to get him to, to agree to a fair contract, say $9 to $10 million a year in today's NBA. That's pretty good. So, does he start? Can he stay healthy? Do they give him an extension? There's a lot going on with Nikola Jovic right now, and I do agree. I think part of the way this season goes will depend on his development. We know what we're going to get from Bam. We know we're going to get pretty much from Tyler when he comes back. We know at this point of his career we're going to get from Norm, right? What can Jovic give you? How reliable is he? Is he going to be that consistent player that he'd have been looking for to kind of complement that trio? Can he stay healthy? Those are all very, very important questions for this team this season.
I think we've seen glimpses of what a ceiling for Jovic would give us. And I think part of the reason they continue to be patient is that ceiling gives them something they don't have.
Yes.
And when I say that, it's a big guy who can stretch the floor, who can see over the top and deliver passes.
Can push the pace.
There was a stretch where he and Ware really teamed up very, very well together.
Yep.
And that's not something. And I'm going to go in the time machine a little bit. And all I can think of is guys like Jermaine O'Neal when he was with Portland. Drazen Petrovic when he was with Portland. And the minute those guys left, they kind of regret it. And do you hold on a year too long and wait to see these guys develop? Or do you cut bait a year too short and watch them go somewhere else and really get upset because you put all the sweat equity in it?
Yeah. And the Heat does not like, I mean, we've seen it, right? They don't like losing guys they develop, right? Sometimes to a fault. They'll try to overpay guys because they don't want to, we developed you. We don't want to see you leave and then produce for somebody else, right? I think they really like Jovic. I think they like his development. I think they like the way his game has grown. I think they see a lot of potential in him. That's why I would not be surprised by an extension if the price is right, right? Jovic is eligible for a max extension. Obviously, he's not getting that. He's not getting a 5-year, $250 million contract. But can you come to terms on, like I said, a 4-year, $44 million contract with a team option maybe in the 4th year or something like that? Or player option? I mean, I think that's fair, right, for both sides. So we'll see what happens. But I know, like, you know, Tyler's eligible for an extension. Norm is eligible for an extension. I think the one I would be least surprised with is Jovic at this point. Just because, again, I think Jovic, he would be a restricted free agent next year. Does he want to be a restricted free agent? We see how that's going for Kuminga, right? We saw how that went for Giddey. He had to wait till like a couple weeks ago to sign his deal. The restricted free agency is kind of dead these days. Maybe he doesn't want to, get involved with that. He'd rather just get it done early. The Heat, if they could agree to a fair deal, maybe they want to get it done early and not have to deal with that next summer. So I think it would make sense for the two sides to come together and find something that works for both. Long term, because I think there's value there for the Heat, and I think there's some security that Jovic could find with agreeing to a contract now.
Look, like I said, when you have a skill set that others don't have, it gives you some value. I think I agree with you. I think you kind of have to wait and see what you can get out of him. And the other thing that you mentioned is this is like one of the few times he's been healthy going into the offseason.
Yep.
So a lot, I think he had foot injuries last year or something, but I think a lot of the room for doubt now it's the ultimate prove-it year for him and how he fits in on this team.
The question is, like, this is a prove-it year. I agree with you, but you have to make that extension decision now before the start of the season. So do they want to give him that extension before? Or do they want to say, you need to prove it to us that you can stay healthy, that you can be consistent, reliable, and then we'll figure it out next offseason? That's right now where the Heat are. They have to choose the best route. It's a risk to wait again, because if he does have a breakout season, what could have been a $10 million a year extension could turn into a $20 million a year extension, right? So for a 22-year-old Nikola Jovic entering next offseason. So it is an interesting decision that they'll have to make. But yeah, they only have less than a month left to decide. It's not like Norm Powell, they have until June 30th next year,
right,
to decide his extension. Jovic is October 20th.
And Riley and company, look, they have hit and they have all. If you've been around this long, you're always going to hit and miss. But I remember the team that started 11-30, finished 30-11. You get an extension. It went south. And then there are times they've signed people and you go, wow, that was a great deal. So we're going to leave it in the hands of experts who do this for a living. And I guess we get to watch and see how it turns out. So as we're thinking about wrapping this up, Media Day, Monday, what are you looking for? Outside of everyone saying they're in the best shape of their life, and we have been working out all year.
We've never been closer. This team has never been closer. Yeah. So the same thing.
Outside of all the platitudes, what are you looking for?
Tyler Herro, I think he's still going to be there. I think he's still going to talk. Obviously, I haven't spoken to him since his surgery. So I think that'll be a big storyline, right? Also asking about the extension. Not great timing for the injury, right? Where he becomes eligible for his extension October 1. And the Heat have until the start of the regular season to decide on that. Again, that was a storyline earlier this offseason. Pat and Tyler downplayed it and said, we can wait until next summer and do it because he's still under contract for 2 more years. So they could wait until next summer, but that is going to be something to ask Tyler. Andrew Wiggins is another one. He has not spoken since the end of last season. He's going to be an important player for this team. How did the offseason go for him? How has he adjusted to things here? Obviously, he was in trade rumors this offseason. How did he deal with that? Where does he kind of see his fit with this roster now with Norm Powell? And then Jovic, right? Jovic and Khalil Ware. Like, those two guys are going to be important. Like, Jaime. Like, there's a bunch of guys to talk to. Terry. I mean, I know not many people expect a lot from him, but he's still in the middle of a federal gambling investigation. He was in the middle of a ton of trade rumors this offseason too, and here he is. He's back with the team. What does he have to say? So there's a lot to catch up with guys about. That's what media day is for. That's what training camp is for. And just hit the ground running.
Well, like we said, media day starts Monday. If you want to find out what happened for all things, and Monday's a busy day because remember also the Dolphins play the Jets that night too.
That's right.
So if you're a South Florida sports fan, you're going to be kind of busy. But
or if you work in South Florida sports media, yeah.
Oh yes. Well, the worst case scenario is, heaven forbid, if the Marlins win out, because people forget that, but they're like 4 out with like 5 games to play. And if they win out, there's a chance, and that would really mess everything up.
I can't believe the Marlins could end up
500,
but could end up 500. By the way, that's amazing. Whether they make the playoffs or not, it's an amazing story.
I agree, and if we had Fish Bites podcast, we would talk about it right now, but we don't.
We don't bring back the Marlins minute, JD, like the Panthers minute to the Marlins minute. An ode to the Marlins.
Yes, but hats off to them, because if anybody told you they could approach 500 at the beginning of this year, and any Marlin, even the most optimistic Marlins fan, you would have been like, you're crazy. So hats off to them. I'm hoping this is the beginning of a climb up for all South Florida teams. Look, it worked for the Panthers. We didn't think that would work for years, and they're 2-time defending champs. Whatever blueprint each of these teams can steal from each other, they should use it. But the one thing I say is, one way or the other, we're kind of in the mix for these things, and we rarely go into the season saying we have no shot at anything. So here's hoping Tyler Herro gets well soon, that they can, hold the fort down. And as it does, we'll watch it unveil and unfurl. You have Anthony Chang, you have Barry Jackson, you will have all sorts of people on this beat. But follow Anthony here or on Twitter or on MiamiHerald.com, and we will take good care of you. For Anthony Chang, I'm John Devine. We'll be doing this more regularly now that the season is getting ready to heat up. So thank you for joining us, and have a good day.